All right, so the Miami Dolphins, it was announced, went out and decided to add Odell Beckham Jr. So it's a one-year deal worth up to $8.25 million. Again, that's up to, so some of that is incentive-based, doesn't mean that he's guaranteed all that money, and usually if you make all that money, you're pretty happy if to pay it, because that means he played pretty well. I've been pounding the table for a while that I really think the Miami Dolphins need a number 3 receiver. Number 3 receivers are really important, and I want to kind of get into why. So first, let's start off with this play. It's going to be a 4th down and 2. It's in that Chiefs playoff game that didn't go very well, and while the easy take was to say, Tua can't play in cold weather, that's it, there's obviously going to be a lot more to it than just that. Usually just, the narrative is all that people remember, not the kind of, more intricate details. Things like this, where they're going to try and scheme up Tyreek Hill in this one-on-one matchup on 4th down and 2. Makes sense. He's your best player. You're going to see that when Tua takes the snap, he is going to, kind of get in trouble. So he has to scramble out. I think if there wasn't that pressure right away, Tua might have been able to hit Tyreek Hill earlier and get the completion. But there's still a good chance this could be complete. However, you see Trent McDuffie come in, he knocks that ball away, and they're able to get the 4th down stop right there. This is something that happened in that game. Quite frankly, the Chiefs were doing very good at being able to, limit Hill and Jalen Waddle. Hill still had a long touchdown, but for the most part, they were doing very good at that. So, for one thing, there's the kind of obvious example of if you have depth players, well, they can go up against easier matchups and win that way. Like something like this, where what the Chiefs are doing is they're going to play man coverage, and for the Dolphins, who they look on, Tua looks towards his right and says, okay, a lot of really good all-pro level corners on that side of the field. I have a couple of receivers towards my left that are not as, threatening. So because of that, you're going to see the better corners line up on the other side of the field. Let's try to take advantage of these matchups. Tua's going to take the snap, and that's what he's going to try and do right here, but, not on the same page. It falls incomplete. They weren't able to really get this stuff going. And again, if Odell Beckham Jr. is out there and they're also not on the same page, it's still going to be incomplete. But just using it as an example of where having a talented number 3 receiver can really come in handy. But also play like this. This was actually the play before that first play I showed you, but let's talk about the situation. So it's a 3rd down and 2. This is something we saw Miami do in this game a decent amount as well, was they needed to try to figure out other ways to get guys open. It wasn't happening. And again, sometimes actually the cold helps out, the defense, not just because it's harder to throw, but sometimes just it can limit the Dolphins receiver speed, right? Is that happening here? I don't know. And you could also argue it could help out the Dolphins receivers because, it limits the corner's speed, and maybe if they get behind, can't come back. But that's not happening anyway with the Dolphins receiver speed. So, it's a discussion that we can get into, but let's just, move on. But right here, what do you do in this situation? Okay, the Chiefs are doing a good job at being able to, cover Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So what do you do? Well, what about this? Let's just run a halfback screen. They tried this a couple times in this game. However, here, it's not going to work. It's, not an ideal throw, but also gets dropped right there by Raheem Mostert. So, again, not great stuff here. But I do think that part of it is, the reality is, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are really good. And throughout against most teams, they're going to be really good, and they're going to consistently get open no matter how much attention you put on them. But once you get to the postseason, you're going to have teams that have good corners. And having not just stars, but depth is super important. I mean, let's look at the Rams when they added Odell Beckham Jr. and what that meant for their roster. I mean, it definitely is something that can really help out. So, okay, a number 3 receiver, really valuable, could help complete this Dolphins team. That's how we feel. There's the other question, which is Odell currently a good number 3 receiver, or is he just is he washed, right? If we look at his box score stats, it would maybe lean you towards the washed category, right? I mean, you look at his yards per season. Keep in mind, 2 of those were actually split up because he was, I believe was released, if I remember correctly, with the Browns and then picked up by the Rams. But still, the guy has not had over 600 yards since 2019. So it's been a few years, only, again, a big part of that has been injuries, missing the entire 2022 season, missing a good chunk of the 2020 season, and even missing a good chunk of last season, which is part of the negative, is how healthy will he be at this point. But when we saw him out there, even for Baltimore, we did see some flashes. A play like this, for example, it's going to be zone coverage going up against the Rams. He actually played really well against the team that he won a Super Bowl with. What's going to happen here, you see how when this play begins, Odell, you kind of still see the explosiveness, his shiftiness, is able to cut well, and gets significantly open against this zone coverage. Again, this is kind of interesting to me because for the Ravens, they signed him hoping he could be a number one option. That's what they were hoping for. They knew, hey, we don't know if this is going to work, but, they paid him kind of for number one upside. For the Dolphins, they are paying him to be a number 3 receiver and to be able to hopefully win against weaker matchups, which, like a situation like this is not a super tough matchup, and he's winning. On this play, Lamar makes the throw, Odell makes the grab and protects himself, gets down. He doesn't want another injury, right? So good job by him there. But yeah, we definitely saw these types of flashes, and for the Dolphins, again, they don't need him to be an 1,000-yard receiver. Can he be someone who, on key third downs, when Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are both double-teamed, can he find a soft spot in zone, or maybe win his own one-on-one matchup? Like a play like this, it's going to be a 2nd down and 10, and you see him running this over-the-middle route right here. So, okay, this is definitely something that I think that the Dolphins want to see out of Odell, right? If Waddle and Hill are both running down the field, and then, obviously attention's going to go in that direction, safety's going to go deep, all of that stuff. Can you have someone win over the middle? Well, on this play, you are going to see Odell is able to, again, cuts really well. Lamar, maybe even a little late on this throw and throwing it a little bit low, so that's not ideal, but still, for Odell, it's a bit of a tough catch, but let's be honest, the guy made such an impressive catch, all the way back in his rookie year that Madden, basically, changed the way their game is played for a bit to try and include those one-handed catches. How many times have we seen Chris Collinsworth talk about Odell every time there's a one-handed catch? This one, not a one-handed catch, but an impressive catch. So he does have a good catch radius. That's obviously something he brings to the table. Again, I think the question and the concern you have with this move is consistency. And how much are you getting out of Odell? Again, the Baltimore Ravens were hoping they were going to get a number 1 receiver. They didn't quite get that. But for the Dolphins, he is someone who, adding him to the roster to be a number 3, for one thing, no team can keep up with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Odell. Even if he's not as quick as he once was, that's still a lot of speed to keep up with, not to mention Jalen Wright and Devon Achane at the, halfback position. But just in general, it's someone who can hopefully make this work. And even if he ends up just being a 500-yard guy, honestly, that's kind of still worth his contract. That's probably fair value. So, I saw Jalen Ramsey tweet out that, hey, the last time these two guys were teammates, they won a Super Bowl. We'll see if they can recapture that magic in Miami. But yeah, really smart move. I think Dolphins have kind of underrated, made a lot of really smart moves this free agency, just like they did last free agency. Will it result in a Super Bowl championship? Remains to be seen. But yeah, really good stuff. That's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.